And the Anything Podcast. I'm Aaron.
I'm Chris. How's it going, everybody?
Here we go.
All right, so pretty interesting this weekend. Thanksgiving was this past weekend. It was nice. How was yours?
It was good. Yeah.
Good. I'm glad. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I ate a lot of food. I had 2 different dinners, so I was really happy about that. And you know how I've been kind of doing my weight loss and trying to eat healthy and lose the weight that I gained from all of the crap that I eat and inactivity that happened and change all that stuff.
Well, the package that I sent to your abode, I was going to put the name Chris Adonis on it. I didn't this time.
Good. Actually, I was looking at that. But yeah, what the hell? So like, obviously Thursday's Thanksgiving. Black Friday is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday now. And then get your last minute Black Friday deals in because tomorrow's Cyber Monday. So Cyber Monday will last the entire week. But yeah, what the hell's going on with Amazon? You ordered something, it shipped out and was at my house the next day.
Yeah, in record-breaking time, though. That was the craziest thing.
Yeah.
That's the
quickest
thing.
And I ordered something probably around the same time you ordered.
Yeah.
And mine's not coming. My first thing isn't coming until Tuesday.
Yeah.
And then the other things aren't coming until Wednesday. And I have Prime too.
Okay. And yours is on the slow boat from China?
I don't know. It shouldn't be. I mean, it's all electronic stuff.
Did the things that you order say Prime?
Yeah.
Why is it taking so long?
I have no idea. I don't know if it's just because they have so many freaking packages that are being shipped or what, but it's like, holy crap. So I'm excited. I mean, there's so many deals, though, that you see that are going on. It's like, ooh, I want that. I want that. I want that. But I don't have the money for it. And it's like, fuck.
Speaking of which, so we have a Patreon page now?
No.
Okay. I thought you said we had Patreon. Last time you said we had Patreon.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah, I forgot. We're in
the works
because
of getting
technically at the time that this will be published, we will have a Patreon, but not at the moment.
So we can't direct people to go there to give us money to support our podcast so we can buy better things and provide better content for people, right?
Yeah, okay. I mean, at the time that you hear this, yes, you can go to our Patreon page. Okay. And if you'd like to support the channel and podcast, by helping us get better equipment or upgrade or extra equipment. So like I don't have to use my keyboard to shift between the different angles of the monitors when we're doing this. Yeah. So I can get an actual little setup called the Elgato Stream Deck or different things like that.
Now that's Spanish for the gato, right?
Sure.
Okay. All right. So I have something of utmost importance because this seems to be a continuing theme on our podcast is the legalization of marijuana. Okay. And fake news.
I like marijuana and I don't like fake news.
Okay. And I do not like marijuana. I don't judge anyone else that does the marijuana, but I like being sober. Okay. And I don't drink the alcohol. I don't like the alcohol. We've talked about that, but here's what bothers me. Men who regularly smoke cannabis have increased risk of developing testicular cancer, a study claims.
I highly doubt that.
Now, this was in the news. This is on the news. This will be spread because it's a I didn't find this. It's a mainstream news article. It's propaganda. It's fake news.
Let me ask you this. In that article, does it actually have anything that alludes to a scientific study? And then how big was the study? And does it also talk about their other lifestyle choices as well, too?
I'm glad you asked that question, Chris, because the problem is when this whole thing with the vape juice was going on.
Conspiracy.
So immediately.
You know what? Actually, I want to say something real quick. I want to say it's a conspiracy with the vape juice shit.
It is.
Because, first of all of the reporting that they're doing is saying that it's the bad vape juice, when in fact it's much different than what that is. It's, first of all, illegal products and just crap products that are being done. But they're trying to cloak this whole vape thing by saying, oh, it's vape entirely, and then all these flavors are going to appeal to kids. No, if I want to smoke something that's got Jolly Ranch flavor to it, I want fucking Jolly Ranch flavor. or if I want watermelon or peppermint or whatever it might be, because, hey, you know what? The cool sensation of peppermint after a nice drag of a vape, and I don't vape, I don't want to, you know what? I want that flavor. If I want to fucking smoke that flavor, shut the fuck up. And then they're trying to, huh?
Oh, go ahead.
And then they're trying to put like this ban on it. And it's like, no, if vaping is more healthy than cigarette smoking is, why wouldn't you want to put behind that? Oh, wait, that's right, because you can't tax vape, and there's no money behind vape when it comes to taxes. But they raise the taxes on cigarettes all the time, saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna stop people from smoking by raising the cigarette tax because people aren't gonna want to pay that." Yet, time and time again, people are still smoking. They just might go to a different area to find cheaper cigarettes, like a duty-free shop, like an Indian reservation, or out of state.
Or they do what I did and buy $10 packs of cigarettes and be poor. Because they know that people are addicted. That's what it is. It's not, public safety. These people have an addiction. How can we profit off of this addiction? Let's just raise the taxes. Everything else, the tax on this, the tax on that, all relatively reasonable. I have no problem with taxes. It's ridiculous taxes. Why are the taxes on cigarettes 3,000 times higher than anything else? It's because they know that it's an addictive product and that they know people are addicted to it, and they're going to pay whatever price they can because it's an addiction.
Yep.
And that's why. With the vaping thing, what was interesting to me was about a reasonable amount of time, maybe a week or two, the CDC had said that they believe that it may be this vitamin E acetate that was being added, I'm probably saying it wrong, that was being added to the juice that was causing this lung problem, but they have no conclusive evidence. And they busted some kids that were like producing thousands of these bad THC pods and selling them, right? And that happened within a week or two, right? But then to wait for actual medical results to come back, it took a while. So between the time that the CDC suspected this vitamin E additive, then this is where the whole vape got blown out of proportion, where they're just saying, oh, vape is killing people. You can't vape. And when I went to get my teeth cleaned at the dentist, she said, do you smoke? I said, no, I switched to vaping about 6 years ago. Oh, you're going to die. People are dying from that. And I go, oh my God. I'm like, if you look into it, it's illegal THC cartridges with some mystery additive, which is a problem. And not only, regulation.
Not only that though, on top of it, it's also what types of chemicals are added to the marijuana, like the pesticides in the illegal grow ops, especially in California.
Right.
Like they're putting chemicals on these products that are illegal in the United States. And if you put it into this vape form, into this cartridge form that you end up vaping, all of that goes into your lungs. And now you are inhaling pesticides and herbicides and all of these other things that are actually going to do real damage to you.
Right.
And if it was just the THC and an oil brought down to an oil or whatever, you could probably do without the additives and all the bullshit that they put in.
Apparently this I think it's vitamin E. It's been a month or two since I read this, but I think it's a vitamin E acetate, which is a thinner, kind of like would be like the equivalent of putting turpentine in paint, like a paint thinner. So it dissolves the THC oil so that it can be vaped, so it's not so thick. But it's toxic, so it sticks to your lungs, and that's what was causing people to be sick. But when you read the article in the news, it just says vaping killing people.
Oh yeah.
It didn't say, illegal off-brand black market.
And exactly. And that's what the narrative is, because they want to collect the tax money on cigarettes, but there's no tax money on vaping. Yeah. And that's the thing. And of course, try doing vaping or try taxing vaping.
They were.
Imagine when that starts happening. Then they're going to be like, magically, vaping is the safer alternative, and you should go and vape instead.
Vape as much as you can.
But the only thing that I have against vaping is that when you smoked cigarettes, you knew how much you were going to inhale, you know how much you were ingesting and all that, because one cigarette is one cigarette.
Right.
You know, if you were a pack a day cigarette smoker, you knew you smoked a pack a day.
Yes.
If you vape, you don't really yet necessarily know what the equivalent of that is.
No.
So you could be vaping 10 times the amount of what you would be if you were just smoking cigarettes. And then the question is, yes, is that going to be a healthier alternative because you're smoking more because of the different substances that they put in it?
Right.
And we don't necessarily know that. So yes, the jury is still out
there
on
is a
certain
risk.
aspects of it. But that's everything.
Yeah.
You know, every single thing, whether it's food like kale. I mean, we know what kale can do, and it's labeled again as the most worst food to eat, or the most pesticides or whatever the hell it is, for like the third year in a row or something. I just saw. I didn't read the article. I only read the clickbait title.
And
so if that's truth or not, I don't know.
So when vaping became popular, and it was popular for a couple years before, and I was a diehard smoker. I loved it. I had a horrible addiction. And when vaping came out, I was more afraid of the vaping than I was of oh my God, it's because people tell you it's radiator fluid. You're smoking radiator fluid. You know that you're smoking radiator fluid.
Well, because it was supposed to have glycol or whatever, glycol or whatever.
It's propylene glycol, but the radiator fluid is ethylene glycol, which is different. Right?
It's different,
but people don't know, right? So, and the effects of propylene glycol on your body are unclear. We don't know. Maybe you're 17 million tumors when I'm 82 years old. But what I can say is when I switched from vaping from smoking, my lungs felt better. But the downside of that was I was getting a higher nicotine level. So I had more of a physical nicotine addiction. I could breathe. I could smell things. Food tasted better. I didn't stink. I was spending a lot less money. But I did have more of a nicotine, which it's the equivalent of a caffeine addiction. If you're addicted to coffee, it's the same thing of being addicted to nicotine. What I wasn't getting was the tar. Yeah. That's what clogs up your lungs.
Well, also a lot of other things that are within cigarettes themselves. Right. There's so much added stuff that they put in cigarettes besides just having tobacco.
Right. And it can be the same thing with vapes. If they're not regulated and they're not something that's proven, you could have a flavor that may be doing damage to you. We don't know. There needs to be, but for the most part, the vape juice that I was getting was high quality produced. It was from a store, and I never had any problem with it. And it helped me to finally quit smoking, which I can't say that vaping gave me more of a nicotine addiction. So what actually really helped me was the meditation.
Yeah, were you getting with the whole nicotine though? Versus a cigarette versus
I was vaping more.
So you're vaping more overall, or
Yes.
you're getting a stronger nicotine?
No, the nicotine, I got to a level where it was just enough. It was about the same as a cigarette, but I was vaping more because you don't have to keep lighting a cigarette up. But again, I was getting a higher dose of nicotine, which would be the equivalent of drinking more coffee.
Yeah.
But I was getting less of all the other toxins which are cancer causing
in terms of cigarettes. But again, whatever, because they put additives and stuff into the vaping pen and the cartridges. So again, we don't know how that's going to affect. And there needs to be studies that actually show that. And unfortunately, because it's so new, we don't have those long-term availability tests yet.
Right.
Like we know if you smoke cigarettes, your chances of getting lung cancer, your chances of getting heart disease, or all of these different things, you know that because smoking has been around for hundreds of years.
It's studied.
It's just cigarettes have been around a little shorter. But then on the flip side, vaping is so much newer. So a lot of the people are guinea pigs. Overall, is it safer? Probably, but we can't say for sure yet. And we don't know. But again, the big thing is we can't limit ingenuity, especially if it truly is a safer alternative or a better alternative. The only thing is instead, make a pen that can vape, or that can allow for the vapor to form by having just say a nicotine only with maybe like a tobacco style extract where it's only just, very simple amount of products. And then that way it's going to be safer
Want to
because
hear my joke?
all of the other, but all of the other additives, we just don't know how it can impact the human body.
That's the whole thing. So if there was a better delivery system where you could just inhale the nicotine so that people like me who had a horrible addiction and didn't have the self-restraint to stop that addiction or the awareness that I knew I was horribly addicted, but for me, I'm like, well, I'll smoke it. It's my right to smoke. I'm one of those people. If I know the risk, I should, if you're educated on the risk, I should be allowed to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole thing with informed consent.
The children, though, I'm going to take away your right to smoke to protect my children because I don't want to be vigilant and have a conversation and be vigilant with my children.
Oh,
that's what it is.
And that's the worst thing right there. And it's such a shame but again, it's not really about the children or anything like that. Again, it's coming back to the fact that they're not being able to collect taxes the same way. And it's the same thing on a lot of different fronts. So you can see like the way the narrative is. So the government is in all of this trying to figure out what's going on because they're losing a shit ton of money when it comes to not being able to collect on cigarette taxes because people are switching over to vapes. And so they're losing out that money. And first of all, they shouldn't be looking for that money to begin with.
Yes.
But we've covered that already. I'm not going to go back to that. And then so they're going to create this problem and the media is also on the same page. So you see, vaping is killing. Vaping is causing popcorn lung disease.
Right.
No, you're not telling the whole story.
And that's not
you're
anywhere near the truth. Yeah.
And exactly. And you're cherry picking what you want as a narrative. So then people are going to be like, oh my God, vaping is so bad. Well, you know what? Here's the real thing, what they should be doing. They should actually be showing you how to quit overall. And so if you want to quit, first of all, it's if you want to quit,
right?
Not you shouldn't be doing it because it's bad for you and my kids are gonna no, it's because you're collecting the tax money, so you're going to continue doing it and making it more addictive. And it's the same thing when it comes down to Uber and Lyft. It's funny because you see the same things going on because first of all, Uber and Lyft upset an entire industry, the taxi cab industry. And so cabs had to pay money to get to the medallions. They had to pay for insurance, which is commercial insurance or livery insurance or livery or however you want to say it. So they're putting money back in, and then the taxes that they collect is much greater than being a driver for Uber and Lyft, where you don't pay all those taxes. And yet people are still getting around to and from more so today than yesteryear before Uber and Lyft came out. So you're starting to see states come around and say, oh, we're putting in legislation that is going to be better for the driver and protect the driver. No, it's not. And if you want to look up these laws, it's AB5 in California that's passed already and is going to go live January 1st, 2020. The companies themselves are doing everything they can to curtail that by saying they're not a transportation company. They're a tech company and a lead generation company that generates leads between drivers and passengers and that. And that's all they really are. So they're changing their things around a lot. And somebody just sent me the revised copy of the terms of service for California, which I'm happy. In New York, it's SBS 6699A, which is just starting to take off, which Uber and Lyft can adopt what they're doing in California to curtail in New York again. But that's the whole thing. In California and in New York, you have a heavy presence of taxi cabs, and especially in New York City and LA and these bigger cities. So they're not making money the way that they would. And California is poised to gain anywhere from $5 to $9 billion in additional tax revenue because of AB5. And it's not because of, oh, we're putting this in place to protect drivers. No, you're actually going to make it worse for drivers if you really sit down and look at it, because all they have to do is say, well, we're only going to hire you as part-time driver. You're not going to work the 60, 70 hours that you used to work because that's what you chose to work. You're only going to be part-time, making only part-time money. And guess what? Now we don't have to provide benefits because you're not a full-time employee.
Right. Yeah.
And that's the Walmart model. That's the Amazon model. Whether I don't know if they've changed over time or not, but that's the models of what they used to do. I don't know if they've changed that since, so I can't say that for sure.
Right.
But that's one thing that they could do, or they could be doing whatever they can to try to make a driver stay an independent contractor as far as what the law will go, where they're passing this. And again, it's all it is coming about. It's we're there for the driver's protection. We're there for the children. We're there for this, there for that. No, bullshit. You're looking for money, and that's all the fuck you want.
Yeah,
get the fuck out of here.
For sure. And it's a driving force, and it happens in everything. It's just, and again, advocate of paying taxes. I get what taxes are for. Taxes fund schools, parks, programs to help homeless people, help.
Then don't forget, they also fund the black operations that we have, the defense operations that we have.
It's funny that you mentioned that, Chris.
The wars that you don't know about because they're not covered, like in Africa, everything that's going on over there that you don't know about, everything that's happening, all of this military funding is also being done by your taxes. Oh, don't forget about your cell phone that's tracking everything you do and then holding your information hostage, essentially. So if they need it for some reason, then they'll be able to go back and collect it. So no, our taxes are not really being used for what they want. Just look at our streets around and look how bad they are.
For sure. There's definitely a lot of improvements. I get the idea of what taxes are for. Now, here's my question. So we're in the age of the internet. Do you think that you should be able to, like, you have to pay X amount of taxes? They say, okay, you got to pay X amount of taxes. But here's what you can do. You go on this handy nifty website and you can pick where you want the money to go. Do you want it to go to help homeless people? Do you want it to go to help medical coverage? Do you want it to go to help, do you want it to build a new park? Do you want it to plant trees? What do you want it to do? Do you think that we could devise a system where rather than this slush fund, because
I'm going to say no. And because it's a very complex thing that most people probably don't understand how it all works together.
Well, right now, our current system. Yeah, for sure.
No, I mean, overall, I can go, let's say this magical site exists, and I say, oh, I want my tax money to go to roads, and I want my tax money to go to parks, and defense spending and all this.
See, that's where I could pick. I don't want defense spending.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't want any to go to schools because I'm not in school. I don't have any kids in school. So what the fuck do I care about?
Yeah.
And that's where the issue lies. Is the thing is, you need X amount of dollars to go to schools, because otherwise they won't have the proper funding in place to be able to operate and educate. If that's a good thing or not, that's a whole different discussion.
Well, what about maybe some kind of sliding scale then, where it's like, wait a minute, we're spending 17 more times on weapons than we are on education. Let's tip the scale so that we're spending much more on education than we are on weapons. Maybe it would be like a sliding scale where you can't say, well, I don't want to fund this at all, but we could all vote to spend on more important things than
no, because again, it's going to be what the needs are.
Yeah.
And so if you need, okay, let's just use fire.
Yeah.
Fire, for example. There's only there's very few places that firefighters get paid for. Mm-hmm. Most of the country is a volunteer fire base.
Yeah.
So that means that right off the bat, you don't pay firefighters, but they still need the trucks. They still need the training. They still need all of this different stuff that they need. So let's just say that maybe they run really efficiently,
Yeah.
and they only need X amount of dollars, but everybody else thinks, or I mean, everybody who votes says, oh, we need to put all this towards all this funding towards fire, which means it bloats the number. Let's say we only need $10 billion a year towards fire. Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But everybody says, no, fire is really important. We need to allocate $100 billion. And that's the whole thing. It's like you don't necessarily know. But then again, it's the government doesn't know because they fuck everything up to begin with.
Well, that's my whole thing is like, okay, this is how much it costs for fire. And we're doing good with fire. There's no complaints over the fire department. So we keep that the same. But then we're like, wait a minute. We're spending a zillion dollars for defense, and we're spending $100 billion for education.
I'm going to end this discussion right now, and that is what your elected officials are there for.
Right,
they're there to put in a budget, and they're there to understand the costs associated with allocating your tax dollars to each specific thing. Now, whether it gets used for that or not is a whole different thing, because one of the weirdest things that I've ever seen. That let's say you have to spend X amount of dollars a year in order to get the correct funding for the following year. You can't run a surplus and like say, oh well, you know what? We have $100 million that's allocated towards us a year. We really only have to spend operationally $31 million.
Yeah.
So now we have to come up with $69 million in some way, somehow to fork out so we can get our funding for next year.
Right. So like,
that's really messed up.
We're gonna build a giant blue circle monument to spend that money so we get the funding. Oh, I get it. I totally get it.
That is really weird.
Well, that's why I'm like, can I go to a website and be like, no, we're not spending money on this giant blue thing.
Well, no.
You know, fix the
no.
home.
What I'm saying is,
yeah, I get it.
Okay, let's use a fire hall as an example.
Yeah.
A fire hall, let's say, again, $100 million they get a year. I doubt it's that, but let's just say a fire hall gets $100 million allocated to them a year, and their operational budget is $31 million.
Yeah.
They have to spend 69. So, let's get another truck. Let's get another truck. Let's get heated concrete for our for right in front instead of shoveling or whatever. Let's do that. But if we don't spend that money,
then we don't get it next year.
We don't get it next year, and they're spending it on stupid shit that you don't need.
Yeah. For sure.
And it's bloating the number up, and it's like, oh well, we need this number because if this is what our operational expense was, it's $100 million. We need $105 million for next year. And in the reality of the situation is, it's like, no, you really only need $31 million.
Yeah.
Stop bullshitting.
Yeah.
And that's part of the problem.
And that's how everything works.
Yeah, and that's a major problem. So it's like if we actually went in and ran things efficiently and ran things according to what they should be, and not played this game that says, oh, if we have to spend X amount of dollars to be able to get this amount of funding for next year. Yeah. But if we don't, then we don't get that funding, even though we still have this surplus.
Yeah. And the crazier, even crazier example is a friend of mine. My two best friends growing up were biology teachers at our local school district, and they didn't have tenure yet. And the district was doing cutbacks at their school and firing a lot of teachers. And it was one of those schools where they didn't have enough money to buy art supplies and supplies for their students. They're cutting back all of these programs. There's no more art. There's no more music. There's no more this. And then they start cutting back teachers, right? And two of my friends lost their jobs because they didn't have enough funding to pay for these teachers, right? And it's horrible. But then, we're building a new football arena.
Oh, yeah.
And they go, well, wait a minute. So she comes up, she goes, I cannot believe it. Now, my mother was in the education system, so I know how it works. I know how the politics works. I got to see it firsthand.
It's so weird.
But it was the same thing as what you just said. They're like, okay, so they don't have enough money to get a music program or art supplies, and they're now starting to cut right to the bone where they're actually firing teachers, right? They're getting rid of teachers.
our football program needs to make sure it
Chris,
stays on top.
That money comes from somewhere else. That's a different state program to build that football arena. Okay, well, why don't they just use that money to fund for the teachers then? Oh, no. That money is allocated for the football stadium. Can't be using it for the teachers. But if they don't spend that money, they lose the money. So we got to build the football arena.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't make any sense.
A effed up.
Yeah.
It's so fucked up. It's so messed up. And that's the whole thing. It's like, but I mean, again, we don't know. I mean, as a general population, you don't know what it takes to actually be funded or not. So you could say, oh, we need to put 60% towards fire and police and hospitals or healthcare or whatever, but we need to allocate 10% to schools and 10% to defense and in this. Yeah. But in the reality of the situation, that's not how it necessarily works.
No, it's not.
So maybe fire and police only need 3% of the budget. Maybe schools only really need 15% of the budget. Maybe defense really only needs 30% of the budget or what, however. I mean, I've never dived into it deep enough to have a full understanding, and I don't want to. And that's the whole thing too. If you allow a bunch of people who are uneducated and uninformed to try to make decisions, it's going to fall upward faster than it already has with the current system in place. So that's what the elected officials are supposed to do. They're supposed to look at what the budget planning is and allocate the proper money towards each thing. But they also have to go in and see, okay, does the school really need $186 million to operate a year, every fiscal year? If they don't, then where is this money being bled, and how do we stop that? So then instead of spending $186 million on crap, and firing teachers and building new football arenas and shit. Let's
militarizing the police.
I'm just talking about schools though right now in terms of one thing. But what we need to do is say, okay, well, what do we need in school? Well, we need the teachers. We need good class sizes. So then students who may need more time or less time, depending, get placed in the right arena for them. And a whole overall of the education system needs to be done. First of all, again, another conversation. But if we're using the exact copy of what we're doing now, then okay, well, we need teachers. We need the right classes. We need the right class sizes. Okay, that's what school is for. All of the extracurricular bullshit is null and void at the moment. Right now, it's teachers. They should be getting paid the right amount of money because, first of all, they only get paid for what's there. They're working so much extra beyond. They're usually using money to set up their own classrooms too. So they have to take their money out of pocket to pay for this. That shouldn't be.
Nope.
It should be, I go into this nice little room and there's all this stuff that I can choose from for my classroom that's granted to me by the wonderful tax donation that everybody has to pay for. So that should be taken care of. So teachers shouldn't be doing that. Also, they should be getting paid fair compensation for the amount that they're working, not only in school, but beyond when they have to grade papers. They have to read the papers. They have to make house calls, maybe do different things along making the class better and go forward. Also, getting rid of standardized testing. That's a huge issue. Again, another topic of conversation.
There's so many problems.
But once we got that. That's the core of what school is for, to educate children in a safe environment. Okay, so we just said safe. All right, so how do we retrofit all schools with bulletproof glass on the first floor? It's not that expensive.
And we need facial recognition.
That football, I don't know if you need the facial recognition really, but
that's what's going on right now.
No, I think that's a little bit of overkill.
I agree.
But I'll agree, first floor bulletproof glass on any door or window on a first floor, great idea. Because you know what? You put that on, you don't have to worry about it ever again. It's one and done.
Yeah.
And that's going to cost a lot less than building your football arena. Then Okay, that's safety. Now, how do we get everybody in school safe? Okay, well, people are mixed about the X-ray scanners. But you know what? Here's the thing. There's stupid people doing stupid things all the time. Kids don't understand the ramifications of certain things. And so bringing a knife to school, they might not understand. They might think, oh, hey, check this out. I got a knife. But they don't necessarily understand what that knife could do.
Right.
So yeah, it could stab somebody and it could really harm somebody.
Right.
And then you could also have somebody who knows what they're doing that comes in. So yes, I can understand having, X-ray detectors or something along that where you go through and search in all schools. It doesn't matter, but at least at that point, and then having doors that lock at certain times. And most schools already have a school guard or police that sit there during school when it goes in session and then at the end of school and then usually throughout the day as well too. So okay, we got safety. Those things are taken care of, but again, those are one and done type things, not every year or whatever. Then, you want to invest in the classrooms itself. With technology today, the ability to have technology at our fingertips is so much different than when you and I went to school, where computers were just starting and the internet was just kind of coming around. And when it was around, it was just really shitty to gain information or get information. Also, teaching people how to get the correct information and all that. So, you want to look at your curriculum. Then after that, okay, well, what do we need to provide the kids? Well, we also need to make sure that they're active and understand that. But then all the sporting and all the art and music and all that is important too.
It is.
But again, so if you're in music, usually it's the student that pays for the instrument.
It depends. It depends on what it is. So
but for
a lot of the schools, like for band, they have violins, they have trumpets, they have things, or you have to go rent one from your local music shop, which is an industry. They don't have any of that anymore. There's none of this going on except for sports for some reason. But all of the arts and the music, which is important for childhood development. And I would argue that maybe music and art might be more important than sports, objectively. Well, at least equally the same.
They're both or all three are very good itself, because one, sports, it's activity. You're learning teamwork. You're learning, you're learning how to compete. You're learning how to overcome challenges. You're learning all of this stuff. So it's a very beneficial thing when it's used with education properly. But if you're a school that says our football team needs to be the best it can be, and we're going to recruit people that may be outside the district, come in the district and start playing, that's where you're getting a little bit of problem.
They're missing the overall education purposes of the sport.
And then on top of that, you have, so certain people are apt towards sports. But not everybody is. So that's where the art comes in. So there's certain people that like art and are apt to art and creativity. And again, that's also where you're learning how to be creative. You're learning how to make something in your own accord. This technically is art. We're coming up with our own content and what our discussion points. So it's art in itself. Same thing with my YouTube channel. It's art because of the creativity behind it and how I present that, and then how I edit everything. It's art. And then you take music. Again, it's the same thing. Music can teach a lot of different things. So yeah, those curriculums are good, but overall, the entire education system needs to be overhauled.
Well, it's crap. So, and also nutrients for students, the food in school. It's not, they need to up their game. They're not teaching anyone about nutrition, first of all. If you really think about what do you need to be a functioning human being, the very first thing you need is fuel so that you can function, right? So that should be the focus is, are these people, do they know how to eat properly? Which is, I didn't know until I went back to school in my 30s, right? I didn't, and again, to show how messed up our education system is, I had to take a nutrition class, which I'm glad that I did, but it was a requirement. It had nothing to do with what I went to school for. I'm glad that I did, though. But why isn't this being taught since day one? The very first thing, how to eat healthy food.
Well,
so that
I'll tell you
fuel.
why. I'll tell you exactly why.
We all know
And
why.
That's because of our lovely thing called the American diet would
The
be
standard
up in
American diet.
shambles,
Yeah.
would be cut at its
Yeah.
heel right there because of how bad it actually is. And yet it's very easy to realize, it's easy to realize how bad it actually is because there's fast food joints 8 on a corner.
Right.
You know, or going right down the street. They're like right down the street from the studio here is, you know, I could go to probably 10 or 12 different fast food joints on top of going to the actual store, getting real food, making it myself, and all that.
Yep.
So it's crazy.
Yeah, the whole system is crazy because I think that
It's
well,
almost
we've talked about so much about education. So here's what when you talk about how people look up the correct information. So this article where we started off was men who regularly smoke cannabis have increased risk of developing testicular cancer.
answer my questions
So
that I had.
okay, so yes, because I like to know the truth, I clicked on the actual research, and when you actually
And was it peer reviewed? Is the first question.
well, no, it's not peer reviewed. And
Okay,
second
so
of
it's
all,
not science.
No. Second of all, well, see, this is where, okay, if I take a set of testicles and I have the most controlled, and I take thousands and thousands of people with as much of a controlled environment as that you can get them, and I do study after study after study, measure their testicles to see if they're getting, and then also, you have to remember that correlation does not mean causation, right? So just because but this isn't even what happened in this study. In this study, they took 25 English language studies. So they're just going through previous studies of people who have smoked marijuana. But we don't know the control of those people who are smoking those. We don't know where they're from. We don't know what their other life factors are. We don't know any of the sample sizes. They're just using keywords to scan this metadata, right? And then link, instances of cancer. So then in their own paper, the evidence for testicular cancer is very low. So that's what it says in their own paper. But if you read the article that they wrote,
it says that it's high.
It says, the article that's in the news says people who smoke cannabis have a increased rate. No, that's not what the paper says. And what the paper actually says, they didn't even study anything relating to any actual real science. They're just using a metadata search.
So essentially what they're trying to do is they're looking up, I'm going to go on Google and I'm going to type in all this information, and then it's going to into a query. I can't speak. And it's going to spit out this information, and then it's going to give me a percentage showing the link between, let's say, smoking marijuana and testicular cancer. And poof, it says 4%. Oh my God, that's statistically significant. Now we need to publish a paper on it. And
not even close to that even percentage amount. But you're right, and it's not.
I'm just using it as an example.
It's essentially they're
how ridiculous.
using, right. They're using a search engine to study published websites that publish medical papers. So, and they give you an example of the queries of words that they use to find this metadata, and then they extrapolate that metadata, and in their own paper they say regular marijuana use was associated with developmental of testicular germ cell tumors, although the strength, this is their own paper, although the strength of the evidence was low and evidence regarding other cancers was insufficient. So they find one instance of maybe someone who had testicular cancer who happens to smoke marijuana, but all of a sudden, then when you have these people, you're right, is what they're doing is cherry picking a sentence out of a paper.
First of all, it's not even cherry picking because
blatantly
it's
lying.
not even it's not even a relevant paper because there's no peer review on it.
And
So it's zero
there's
science.
no testable sample
And
size.
there's nothing behind it. It's a bullshit article.
Yes.
And that stuff, that is
It's
the
fake
prime.
news.
That's what I was just going to say. That's the prime example of fake news.
So now the question becomes, I wanted to mention this. So Sacha Baron Cohen.
Oh God, let's not.
Okay, well, I don't know how you feel about him. Well, you don't like Borat? How could you not like Borat?
No, I think he's going to the narrative of everything that's going on, and yet if you look at all of the stuff that he's done in Borat and all of his other movies and talking about freedom of speech, dude, go fuck yourself right now. That's what I got to say.
All right. Well, I was impressed with him, and I'll tell you why. You know what? I didn't like Borat, to be honest with you. I don't care for it. It's not my the Ali G show was kind of funny, I guess. I especially didn't like what was the other one? Bruno. Borat, I get why it was funny. I get it wasn't my type of humor, but I didn't like Bruno. But anyway, I still respect him as an entertainer. But he was giving a speech for the Anti-Defamation League. And I was extremely impressed. I didn't agree with all of his talking points, but he presented himself very well. But one of his points was like, when there's fake news like this, like anyone else can get sued for libel, right? But you cannot sue these people for spreading fake news. It's freedom of speech, but it's dangerous. Someone is reading these articles. Don't smoke marijuana, get testicular cancer.
Yeah, I understand that part 100%. Like that makes sense with the fake news because I can go on, any website or any hosting site, buy a hostings package and a domain name and label it some sort of news, and then all of a sudden just start publishing news articles.
That's garbage.
That's bullshit 100%. I understand that aspect of things, and there needs to be responsibility, and that's one of the things that people need to realize is what responsibility is. But the problem is also that everybody's looking at this clickbait title because it gets clicks, it gets views, and then the worst part is when you're scrolling through your Facebook or Twitter feeds and you just see the headline of it, but you don't actually even read it, and you just read what it says there, and then you automatically start thinking, oh, well, the testicular cancer and smoking marijuana,
that's what happened.
I can't smoke pot anymore because I'm going to get ball cancer.
Yeah, exactly.
When in fact, right there, first of all, it's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
I get that, but the part where I don't like is the free speech aspect where, no, we shouldn't be limiting our speech in any way, shape, or form. We should be able to have the freedom and expression of anything at any point, but with responsibility. And that's the whole thing. Like us sitting down and talking about different issues that we're on opposite sides of the table on, but still talking about it, even if it's controversial or not, not talking about something and expecting everybody to fall in line with that way of thinking is not going to happen. That's Orwellian. That's 1984 thinking
and also,
right there.
You're right, because even if we're talking about ideas, I'm not presenting fake evidence as something that's real. And if I was doing that when I know that it's not real, then you and everyone else should hold me accountable and say, you're full of shit. You read the paper right here, and you're still publishing this when it says right in your own documentation that this is bullshit.
Yeah. And again, that's going to go back.
You should hold me
liable. And that's going to go back to the schools again.
For sure.
And the lack of education because, one, they don't teach students how to properly research anything.
Well, I can't say that education completely failed because I know how to look up this stuff because of education.
But I'm saying overall, it's you don't know how to do research.
The general masses do not.
You got to remember, when we're talking, you got to give each other the time.
Agreed.
All right, so let's go back to diet-ish a little bit because I have a couple questions for you. So we've talked about this previously. And one of the things is that there's chemicals that are put into certain products like soaps and shampoos and laundry detergents and things like that that are actually testosterone inhibitors. And we talked about this a little bit on a previous podcast, or maybe just in general. And you said you've made quite a few changes to your products and stuff. And you like to research things. You're a researcher.
Yeah.
You like to know the numbers and stuff behind everything.
The truth. That's what I want.
So you've changed certain products or gotten different products, and you've probably done the research. I think it's time to due diligence and inform other people that what products you've found, or at least what things that are added into certain products that could be testosterone inhibitors and estrogen producers in men, as well as having negative effects on women as well, because maybe it's too much estrogen that they're getting. So let's kind of talk about that.
Well, for me, I just switched deodorant. And just because I wanted a more natural deodorant, I didn't realize that there's a great website called EWG. I think it's ewg.org. And if you go to that website, they rate different kind of products for sustainability, and they give you the grading scale. But it's a lot of tips on what kind of chemicals to use in your home for cleaning, on your body. And it's a great resource. So for me, I didn't do much resource into the testosterone inhibitors, or I just wanted to be more natural and try to.
And yes, it is that site you said.
It's ewg.org.
Yeah.
So basically, the more chemicals you're exposed to, whether it's in your food, in your cleaning products, in your hair, your body care, we don't know what's good and what's bad. I mean, there's evidence to show that certain chemicals are bad for you, but there's so much that goes on in our environment that you just can't study. You know, we could all be scientists, and there's a very small amount of people who are studying these things because football is important. But I digress.
How about them Bills and the Cowboys, man?
Yeah.
Thanksgiving night or Thanksgiving Day game.
Never heard of it. But for me, I just wanted to be more natural, and I guess I should look into more of things that I'm putting on my body. So I've switched deodorant. I've stopped using. Also, what's interesting about your flora and fauna, or I'm not even saying that right.
Why don't you say what that is?
So
if people are listening and don't know.
Yeah, I'm not saying it right. So
no, it's flora and fauna. Yep.
Well, those are things like flora are like isn't fauna like animals that live in the woods, and then flora is like the
fawn is probably what you're thinking, or not fawn. I actually I don't even remember.
Okay. Well, I'm saying it wrong. So anyway, but we've all a lot of people are really into like gut health right now, where there's a lot of studies on your gut health that helps your immunity, helps
helps a lot of regulation with vitamins, minerals.
Yeah.
Also your brain functionality, your body overall, energy, a lot of different things. So your gut health is a huge impact, and 90% of your immune system is in your gut. So if you're not eating healthy and you're getting sick all the time, it's probably because of what you're eating. Maybe you're smoking, maybe you're drinking a little too much excessively and stuff like that. But gut health is a huge thing. And so there's a lot of different things and what you can do to improve gut health and be healthier overall, and get that system working to your immunity to boost it, as well as just your overall functionality. So it's getting the food that you eat into your body, into the cells, so it's able to use it.
Right. So that's one thing I was like, okay, I got to eat better. I didn't even know about gut health. I just wanted to feel better. But then the other thing is your skin, your microbiome on your skin. So, I don't know if you're the type of person that lathers yourself up with soap from head to toe, right? But for me, I'm like, you know what? I'm only going to do my pits and my butt crack now because the bacteria that are on your skin can be healthy bacteria for you. And I don't want to ruin my pH balance for my skin. I never thought about any of these things, right?
Yep.
So really, you need to wash the stinky parts, right? So
mostly the crevices.
Yeah,
and
crevices.
That's exactly what. And it's because they're rubbing to each other, so it's always warmer. And it's a different heat pattern than the rest of your body because it's not as exposed. It's more protected. So yeah, it's going to get a little stinky because of that bacteria. Right. It's just natural.
Yeah.
So yeah, you wash the crevices, and I'll be honest, I go up and down.
Yeah, I used to soap
but
top to bottom.
Yeah, and one of the problems though with me is because I do so much cardio, I do it twice a day. So all that sweat and that bacteria now isn't just in that area, it's all over the body because of all the sweat that's
what
out.
I thought. But I'm like, wait a minute, the water is washing all that away. Unless I'm like, I don't, I playing a lot of hockey, like your pads, you'd get a stink on your hands and your pads because you're, putting your same things in your little duffel bag, and that's a stink that gets on you. But other than that, if you're, just working out at the gym, when you get the shower, it's all going to wash away. And then that soap just under your arms, just so you don't have horrible body odor. Subjectively.
You want to know what's really funny is, like, you're not supposed to wash your hair every single day.
No,
either.
I didn't know that
You're
either.
only supposed to do it like once a week, like with shampoo.
Right. I didn't know that
and
either.
Want to know a really, really fun little aspect of shampoo? You want to know how they doubled their revenue in one simple change?
How?
Without changing anything? All they did was put on the bottle that says, put on product.
Yeah. Rinse.
Repeat. And then repeat.
Yeah.
They doubled their revenue with
course.
one word on the packaging.
It's the same thing with soap. Like, it's the same thing when you see someone in the shower all lathered up in soap in the commercial, you think that's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, wait a minute. And I don't see any difference. So you save on soap and save on all of these things.
A lot, yeah.
So then it turns out that fauna is all of the animal life present in a particular region. So then the flora would be all of the vegetative growth in a particular region.
So technically, the bacteria, because it is a living organism in a particular region inside the body.
So it would be your gut flora?
Yeah.
Or gut fauna. Gut flora?
I don't know. I don't remember.
Fauna is animal life. So flora must be everything else. Well, either way. So I haven't, but it's interesting in our environment. On the way over here, I was listening. I know that I've become old because I've switched my radio station from music to NPR.
Well, technically, time out here. First of all, you're listening to the radio.
Yeah.
You have like this wonderful tool at your discretion called a cell phone that has this amazing thing called a cell phone signal where you can go on to the internet and download hundreds of millions and billions of hours of different podcasts or YouTube videos that you don't even have to watch. You could just have playing in the background to kind of, or Twitch streamers or whatever it is. You're still on the radio?
Well, what I do is...
Oh my God, you're so old.
Well, that's how I'm getting old, because I drive in silence now, where there was a time in my life where I couldn't drive anywhere without music. Now I drive in silence, but if I need some background noise, I just turn the volume up on the NPR and I hear someone talking. Well, what they were talking about was the EPA's acceptable level of pollution. And there's, some new chemical, which is, it's not even the name of a chemical. It's ppm 225 or something, which I'm probably
it's probably 25 parts per million.
That's exactly it. So what it is it's particles that you absorb that come from the burning of coal and tailpipes from your car that the EPA says are acceptable limits, but now they're doing studies which suggest that this inhalable pollution may be a major cause of death in our country. And the way they did it, the study was by analyzing metadata, which is exactly what the testicular cancer study did. But they did it in a different way where and again, correlation does not mean causation, but what they were analyzing was the death rates from illness in particular areas, and then also analyzing the amount of pollution that was in those areas. So they found that people in those polluted areas are dying more quickly. Who would have thought? I can't believe it.
Yeah, so, and the difference though with that is that's easy to overlay a map and say, okay, well, let's look at the death rate of something.
And it was a much wider study with a lot more data.
Yeah, and then you could show, well, let's look at the pollution areas, and you can kind of see that there's going to be like this mix between the two. Yeah. So you could see, and then, you could probably run some numbers and get maybe a correlation number, which isn't going to really necessarily be accurate because there's no real... It's again metadata, like you were saying, instead of actually conducting real studies and real long-term
and interestingly enough, and this data set that they were using was much larger, much more studied. They have much more data about the specific deaths, who died of what cause, and they were able to link all of these different types of death with an increased amount of pollution. But I don't see that all over the news. There is this new study suggests that pollution is a killer. We don't see that highlight. We just see marijuana causes ball cancer, which is a whole nother problem. But on NPR, I was listening to this on the way over here, and it really made me think about environment, because right now I think the biggest threat is not, nuclear annihilation from a foreign power. I think that it is.
Yeah, I think pretty much we're safe-ish from that.
Right.
I think most people are going to work together because they know what it could result in. And I think that that's a Pandora's box that should stay locked.
Right.
And I think most people are on that same page. Hopefully.
Yeah, well, I agree. So what can be done? That's my whole question is like, it's, on the way home the other day, I live by the canal, by the Erie Canal. It was midnight. Actually, it was, I think it was either Thanksgiving Eve or Thanksgiving. So it was about midnight. And I looked into the canal. The boat docks, there's a green garbage can where you launch your boat, right? The garbage can, I could only see the top of the garbage can underwater. And even before that, when I had turned onto the street near the canal, well, I had played there since I was a kid.
Oh, are you talking about the crazy windstorm and all that?
No. So here's what's interesting to me, though. I had played at this park since I was a kid, and I know that those willow trees and everything that are along the banks are, 50, 100 feet away from the shoreline of the canal. So when I see this water that is 4 or 5 feet above these willow trees, I'm like, holy crap! Like, that water is extremely high. And then I saw one of the green garbage cans that is very far away from in the middle of the boat launch. I could only see the top of the garbage can. All of the docks were like 4 feet underwater. Oh, I had to text my friend. I go, dude, the canal is ridiculously flooded. I've never seen anything like that in all the years that I've lived here.
Yeah, but
there's flooding everywhere.
But I'll tell you, global weather pattern change has zero impact on this area in terms of the water level, because we're not at a sea level and nothing's draining into it.
I'm 39 years old and I've never seen that level. Where's it coming from?
Aaron, hold on. There was a major storm, a windstorm that was coming this way that takes all of the water and it rises the level. Plus, there was a lot of rainfall that we had that day as well, too. Because I know exactly what you're talking about. Because when I drove by the lake, it was much higher than it normally is, but it's because of that factor. You have a giant lake that is in the same shape of the wind that it was coming. So you have 300 miles-ish, I think is the length of Lake Erie, that the wind is coming over and with friction is carrying that wind. And again, you're creating the pressure zones and stuff. So it's going to rise up here. But if you go to the other side of the lake, you would see it would drop probably a substantial amount as well too. So it's all it is just the wind pushing everything, plus all of the wind, or I mean all of the rain with the watershed being right there. That's the major cause.
Well, what was interesting was that when I went back the next, I texted my buddy. I'm like, you're never going to believe this. The water is the highest by far that I've ever seen, not just a couple feet, by far. And
yeah, it was just a perfect storm.
Yeah, it must have been. So then, ironically, the next day when I went back, it was still pretty high, but I could see the docks, and that garbage can was, in the middle of where it was supposed to be, and the water is very far away. So nature, but it did get me thinking, like, around the world, there's definitely things happening. Like, Venice is underwater, and all these flooding is happening.
Venice was also built on the water, and they always experience flooding at this time. So it's just the natural occurrence. So the question, though, is how much impact? And then, we can't say that right now this is the only time that's happening, like forest fires and this and that. And the other. No, because forest fires have been around for hundreds of, it's been around forever.
Yeah,
it's just that
forest fires, I don't think,
I mean, first of all, to say that global weather pattern is static is bullshit, because it's always changing and it's always different. So that's one of the big problems right there when you come down to it. But yeah, there's a lot of changes that's happening, and it's happening all the time. But the only thing too is everybody's stuck on, oh my God, global warming, oh my God, climate change. And then if there's one little thing that happens that could be very isolated or an isolated event, oh my God, we're freaking out because it's the end of the world. But again, it's like that cherry picking the data type thing. And it's like, well, is that event really a major cause of concern, or is it an isolated event that happens regularly or doesn't happen regularly? But it's just this causation of maybe the way the winds picked up, and the certain temperature of the water that the winds go over, and there's a lot of factors to it and a lot of complexity. Because I mean, like, look at Thursday. I think it was Thursday or Friday, maybe. LA was getting snow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and they're saying, "Oh my God, it's getting ridiculous," and yet they had snow, and it went south of Tijuana, like Baja, Mexico. Parts of Baja near Tijuana was getting snow as well too. So it's like the weather patterns. We don't necessarily know, because first of all, I'm not saying climate change isn't happening. Obviously, it's always happening, and it's always happened. But as we're getting more and more detailed descriptions of the weather, because we've only had detailed descriptions of the weather in certain areas of the world since the 1850s. And then as other parts of the world develop, they're starting to be able to record their weather better. So now we've only had this smidget of time. Yeah, we can look at the ice, the ice records and stuff, but it's only going to show you so much information. It's not going to show you, what's happening all over the world, but just in parts of the world. So, we're always going to experience it, and whether the entire ice caps decide to melt or not, and the sea levels do rise all the way, and expand, or if certain currents stop, or this or that or the other thing, we don't necessarily know what's going to happen and when. And I think a lot of the issues that we have is a lot of people are fear-mongering under this fake news, and we need to step back, look at what we really can look at, and figure out much better, and not do this fear-mongering and say, oh my God, it snowed in LA, the world's coming to an end, or something like that in terms of climate change. Because yes, climate change is always happening. It's always been happening. Just because we were in a relatively calm period or predictable period doesn't mean it's not going to be like that, coming forward, or even just a new aspect. We don't really necessarily know. We need to take the time and figure it out more, instead of oh my God, this happened. It's proving that the end of the world. And
this is where you and I take much different view. So first of all, this fluke with the canal was crazy, and who knows what caused that.
Yeah,
but I do know.
But again, that was the wind, and we had a lot of rain.
But what I do know is I've been doing a lot of fishing, and for the past couple years, go to places. For some reason, this summer there's been a lot of flooding. I don't know why, but then there's been flooding all over the world. I don't know why. But what's really happening, and the reason I love science is the exact reason why I can find that this bald cancer marijuana research is bogus, and then that there might be a little bit more stock in this other paper that I was listening to on the way from NPR about the chemical study where it's showing that parts per million under a certain micron may be damaging for you. And it makes perfect sense. When you show me evidence and you show me, well, here's what we collected, here's how we did the analysis, here's our data set, and you can show me things that make sense. And even this paper about the pollution, they're not saying, well, this definitely kills 100,000 people every year. They're just saying we're finding, which that's science to me. When you can show me evidence that leads to this may be the reason. Good. Yeah. Well, that's what's happening with global warming. There are thousands, I don't want to say millions, but there are tens of thousands of scientists around the world who are working collaboratively doing all of these different studies and tests with very sophisticated equipment that's much, it's interesting to me that we don't know so much.
Prove the point first. Don't deviate.
No, but what's interesting to me is that there's a lot we don't know, but the sophistication of what we do know, of what we can test for and do experiments, there's a lot of really detailed shit out there that is way over my head. And that's what all of these people are doing. They're doing the tests. They're doing the experiments. I get that. So that's who I listen to. When they're coming out and saying, look, we're doing all of these experiments, we're doing the work, we're doing the tests, and all of these scientists around the world are all saying the same thing, I'm going to listen to them.
Yeah, but
I don't think the canal flooding is the thing.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing with that. I'm not denying that in any way, shape, or form. What I'm saying is that it's not the science behind it that I'm saying is the problem. It's the effects of what people are saying beyond that becomes a problem. Because again, you could say, okay, well, there's these X amount of different things happening around the world. And then, you pick anything, and the media or people can portray that issue to be so surmountable in terms of evidence, even though it's not necessarily the truth or even has any implication or has any reason to be included in it. Right. And then saying something like, oh, well, all the ice is going to melt in the next 10 years. Like, you cannot say that because we just don't know. You don't know what's going to happen in 10 years. You don't know if something could change because you can't predict the future. And those are the things that I'm having a problem with. I can understand that they can say, well, with what we're doing and from this rate to this rate, we can measure, and that's X amount of ice loss that we've had over this amount of time frame, and it's accelerated from before that. I get that. That's great. Yeah. And you can also say, if we keep it up, our current estimates say that in 10 years the ice is going to all melt all over the world. But you can say that, but in reality, we don't know what the next 10 years could look like or what could change or what impacts. So, and then also on top of that, where they're focusing in on all this climate change debate is not the right areas to focus in on. Like, who cares about cow farts and burps? Like, realistically, that's a very small smidget of what's actually contributing to the gases. We should really be looking at businesses that are sending the pollution, sending the carbon dioxide into the air, and figuring out what we can do to help curb that That's where the major issue
Well,
is.
the cow farts is from an Al Gore campaign from the 90s. So that's just an old detriment of when we first started to be aware
but
of
see,
the climate
here's the
change.
thing.
But I haven't heard anything
But
about that.
they're
since
also
then.
talking about making policy to tax meat to fight global warming or to fight climate change.
That's
and
where
those
I'm
are
with
the
you.
problems.
Yeah, that's what the problem.
And those are the issues that I have with it. It's not the fact of trying to prevent, the possibility of having the ice melt and global sea rise levels or global sea levels rise to a really high amount. I'm not saying anything against that. What I'm saying is how you're portraying it both in the media and from a legislative standpoint, saying, oh, we need to stop cow farts and burps.
Yeah, I don't hear anything about that. What you're talking about is politics.
Yeah,
and that's where the problem is. Yeah.
Those are the problems I'm having because it is so politicized.
I totally get that.
I'm not denying the science. I don't have a problem with the science. That's what I'd rather focus on.
Yeah.
It's the problems, though, where the media and policy and politics are actually focusing.
Well, look what just happened with the ball cancer, with the testicular cancer thing. This is an article that's in a major news outlet.
What is the article? Where is it from, you said?
Well, it's posted up. I don't even know if I should say because...
Well, anyway, you're reading the article, so you can post it since you're talking about it.
Well, you can find the article. But anyway.
Where is it? The Verge, Vox, what?
Yeah, it's a major news outlet. But anyway.
So what is it? You need to cite your sources.
No. If you go on the internet and type
Holy
in testicular cancer, you can find it. Anyway, so Chris has a very good point, which is the problem with our current state in general. It doesn't really have... It's not even global warming. It's the current lens of politics and misinformation and pushing people's agendas is what the problem is, which is taking away from actual science and facts. And this is where, again, Sacha Baron Cohen's speech at the Anti-Defamation League is really great. However you think about his art or his comedy is one thing, but his speech you should definitely check out because it starts out with exactly what Chris is making a great point about, is that our society has somehow gone from, facts and evidence and research and proof to fake news, scaremongering, and just disinformation and propaganda. And it's a huge, huge problem. It's a huge problem. And it is taking away from the fact that our planet is in trouble right now. And I never thought I would be the type of person that would say, well, maybe I need to be more conscious of my impact on the environment. And how can I think of ways to make my small impact, but in general, in society, is human existence on Earth. What are the most important problems that we have? Is it starvation? Is it poverty? Is it inequality? Well, one of the biggest problems that we have right now is climate. We're not going to be alive to think of any of these problems if we don't do something. But is exactly what Chris is. He makes a great point that the problem is any subject, whether it be climate change or, fake news, medical data, what really happened is being skewed by fake news, political agenda, lobbying, and it's a huge problem, and it's hurting all of us. It's hurting all of us, and it's clouding all of our judgment on what is the right thing to do to take care of these problems. So he makes a very good point. And my other point is climate change. It's not so much, and I never thought I would be one of these guys, but it's not so much, well, the ice caps are going to melt and flood everything. It's a cumulative effect around the world where it's killing the oceans, it's killing the ice caps, it's killing insects, it's killing animal life, and it's eventually going to kill human life. And if you care about your human life, then we do have to take action. For me, maybe I'm going to start using a glass bottle and start using a disposable toothbrush and using more natural products. Just small things that you can do.
Well, yeah, we can all do small things to make changes. So since you will not give up where you are getting your source from, I will, because I want to make sure it stays credible. So if you want to look, it looks like there's a few news outlets that ran with this story. And Daily Mail is the actual one who has it the oldest, at least from what I've found.
Yep.
It's also spread to Yahoo News and Inquisitor.
Yep.
So those are the few different sources that if you want to go and look it up, you can.
Yeah.
And I don't know why you don't cite your sources, because if you're going to make claims, you need to back it up.
Well, those
That's
are
the
very
whole thing
powerful
about
companies.
science.
Those are very
Yeah,
powerful.
and they're not
companies.
going to be able to silence somebody by you saying or talking about a news article.
Yeah, you never know.
I don't really care. I'm not going to. I'm going to share the information, and I'm not going to care.
Yeah. Well, you're right, and you make another good point. Is exactly like you. Apparently, you can just spread fake news bullshit, and nothing can ever happen to you. So why shouldn't I be able to cite where that fake news bullshit came from? You're exactly right.
Yeah, don't fear or don't be feared by these companies. Actually, let me rephrase it. Don't fear these companies. Make these companies fear you, because that's what it should be.
Yeah.
Just like the government. The government should not be feared by the people. The government should fear the people, and that's what.
Well, that's another thing that a lot of people lose sight of. Like when we elect a person that's a public servant to do our job for us,
a job.
Yeah, a job for us. In society, a lot of people hold them to they're on some kind of pedestal, but in reality, that's a person who's hired to do the job that we're too busy doing other things to do or not skilled enough to do. They're supposed to have expertise in that. And in fact, if you, we could really go down a rabbit hole on this one too, just like climate change, but I don't want to go into politics.
No, I hear you there. I don't really want to, because politics are just bleh.
Yeah. But if you want to really learn like the real science about climate change, Sean Carroll, who I really respect him. I think he's great. He's got his own podcast. And he has his podcast is called Mindscape. His name is Sean Carroll. You can check out the Mindscape podcast. It's number 65. Michael Mann on why our climate is changing and how we know. And if you listen to that podcast, that is a real climate change scientist. And scientists, you have to understand, people don't understand. Scientists normally, if they're actually a real scientist, they're not skewed one way or the other. They are trying to prove what is really happening, and that's all they care about.
Good scientists
Yeah, exactly.
are looking, bad scientists are the ones who are looking for certain data to prove their theory. But good scientists will have a theory and be happy to be proved wrong.
Yeah, that's science.
And that's the real thing.
The other thing, what you're talking about, is fraud. And a great example of that is the anti-vaxxer guy.
Well, you know what? I'm going to do one better than the anti-vaxxer, and that's the sugar and the sugar industry.
Yeah, the sugar industry.
And saying that fat is actually worse for you than sugar is. Yep. And no, ladies and gentlemen, sugar is much worse for you than fats are.
Right.
In fact, you want to eat fats because it's actually good for your body, and you want to avoid all of that sugar. And really avoid all of the diet sugars, because of some of the stuff that they put in there is not good for the body. And
look at the damage the anti-vax guy did. He publishes one fake paper about vaccines causing this, then causing that. He's discredited and disbarred and lost his medical license. And this was a long time ago.
Yeah, but,
and we're still have this regurgitation.
Here's the one thing when it comes to one person versus a number of different people who are bought.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's say one person exposes, and whether it's true or not, I don't care. That's not what I'm getting to the point at. I'm just saying is, what if one person did have a real study on anything and proved that there was problems with the way our current thinking was, and because they proved it, they're like, oh, we're going to disbar you, we're going to discredit you and all this different stuff and run a huge smear campaign against you. So when it goes against one person, I want to see other people either back up the same or back up. Again, it's the pure reviews. That's the whole point. Like, if this person did a fake study, you shouldn't be smeared. You should be disproven by the same study in a different way, or I mean a different area or different place. And then that way you can collaborate to see, is that person telling the truth or is that person lying? Because, we ran this study 10 times and 10 times our information came back absolutely false.
Yeah.
And yours came true. So, and that's the whole major thing about peer review and the importance of it. And it just doesn't happen today anymore. Nothing is really peer reviewed much anymore. And that's a damn shame, because that's where you get the real science. That's where you get the real information. That's where you get the entire scientific method. You're taking all of the steps, including peer review.
Right.
And that's the whole point. And that's one of the things. So yeah, if it was never peer reviewed and you just run a smear campaign against somebody, what if they were true? We don't know that because they've never been peer reviewed, or if they have been peer reviewed, we don't know. But again, you can't say, well, let's look at our studies of this, this, and this. No, look at his study again, do it in a different, do it in, do that exact same study again and see if you get the same results or not.
Yeah. Well,
because if you get the same results, maybe he has some truth to it. Maybe he doesn't. And that's the issue that I have when it comes down to it.
Well, even, a great example is a friend that I have fell for a fake study about vaping when it first came out, where they're like, oh, vaping has this chemical in it and that chemical in it. So, okay. They sent me this email, which is a legitimate website. I read the same thing with his testicular ball cancer with pot smokers. I go, oh, vaping has all these chemicals in it, huh? Okay, where's your proof and evidence? Show me how you got these results. So I click on the link of the alleged paper, and that, again, says the same thing. This one I really had to dig for. And they say, oh, this says vaping proof and show. Okay, show me. Where's this paper? So I click another one, and then I finally click another one to the actual paper. And since I was a vapor at this time, I could look at my equipment and go, okay, how did they produce this experiment? All right, well, my vaping equipment only goes up to 50 watts, and no one would ever turn it up that high in the first place, or whatever the wattages was. So then I look at, they essentially take the little coil that you would use for the vape, and they hook it up to essentially probably a car battery or something, and literally burn it in hundreds of watts higher than any normal vaping thing could ever go, and essentially burn it.
You need to set your source too, by the way, so if people want to look this up.
Well, this is a long time ago, so
you don't remember?
Yeah, I don't remember. But I will say that although the actual equipment that they used, the study was still very vague, because they didn't cite all of the experiments. They didn't say what equipment they used. They didn't say what juice they used. They just said, we tested this coil, not even the brand of coil that they use, but we tested a coil with this amount of wattage, but they at least said the amount of wattage of power that they were putting, which is where my bullshit detector came on. I'm like, okay, you're taking this coil and you're essentially dry vaping this thing and burning it.
Well, yeah.
Then taking a sample of the burned chemicals that are coming off this thing and saying, oh, well, this burned metal and burned vapor is all sorts of chemicals. Okay, well, that's not how you use this thing. No vapor is ever going to...
And that's the whole thing. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to...
It's fraud.
Yeah, well, they're trying to do an experiment that is probably replicatable.
It is.
And they're trying to do it in their favor by going so outside the normal realm that it would be maybe technically or physically impossible through the limits of its own mechanisms.
Right.
And at that point, yes, it's absolute fraud, because you're lying to get those results.
Exactly.
And if you took even the max settings on, let's just say, the vape pen, maybe specific on to what you use or whatever it was done, to that, and then get what were the results at that point, and then what is the normal range of operation,
right? Not
the max, but the normal range of operation for people. How far are you getting it, and run those numbers? So
in a legitimate scientific experiment, you need to tell me what equipment you use so that I can replicate it. I should be able to get, if I wanted to, I should be able to acquire the amount of the vape pen, whatever your experiment is, I use this amount of juice. I use this amount of wattage. This is where it came from, and you can replicate that experiment. But in this particular experiment, although I could take a filter or a coil for the vape pen and hook it up to that wattage and literally burn it, take that vapor and test it for chemicals, and of course I'm going to get a result.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what kind of coil they used, what kind of juice were they using. It's not a scientific replicatable experiment. But then the people who are reading this paper, they only see the headline, chemicals.
Yeah.
So then they write an article, then that article is regurgitated, and then mass produced in the media, and you get a person like our friend who says, well, it says right here that your vaping has all sorts of these chemicals in it. And then you try to explain to them, well, no, my equipment would never go up high enough to burn it, and I would also never be vaping it without the lubricating juice in the first place. So that what you're reading is bullshit, but they believe it. So this is where we have a problem with fake. Well, I don't understand why it's happening though, Chris. Why is this happening? To push what agenda? Why can't people just tell the truth?
I've been asking myself that for a long time. And what's crazy about that is when you actually do tell the truth, people actually know, they get it. And when you're genuine, that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. And the crazy thing is, you could just say one simple little clickbaity thing, and then all of a sudden people just start running wild with it and saying, oh, no, that's it. But to try to disprove that and give them the real situation, the reality of it, you got to sit them down, and it's like 50 pages worth of stuff for a headline to refute that just little simple headline.
And then they don't even listen.
And they don't listen. And that's one of the big problems. And that's also where education fails us. Because one of the big things that I've experienced in my life is the fact of how much knowledge that we don't actually know. What we don't know. Because what we've learned in school, and I've retained quite a bit, because I have a pretty good memory, I'm not going to lie. But I have a pretty good memory. And the stuff that we learn in school, and then the things that you watch on TV that are actually like documentaries about said subject, you can tell is much different. And they don't necessarily line up. And whether it's new knowledge that came forth or whether it was just a bald-faced lie from the get-go, there's a lot of things that you need to take into consideration. So once I started realizing that the stuff that we learned in school is not necessarily accurate, that's when I gave up a lot of the things that I was thinking were to be true and start my wonderment into learning all aspects and all realms of a particular subject, and whatever it could be. So I don't get married to ideas in any way, shape, or form. So like if somebody says an idea or a thought or something about a particular subject that I had a different thought or idea on, I will listen to them and I will take that into consideration with all of the other things that I may have come across that talk about that same subject, and go from there, and then determine whether they have validity or not, or if they read a clickbaity article or whatever it might be. So that's one of the big things. Like, I'm not married to the ideas that I have. So if somebody says, eggs are good for you, you should eat them, instead of, oh, they're bad for you, don't eat them, they're high in cholesterol, blah, 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 blah. And you're like, oh my God, I can't eat eggs. I can't, and then cut it out completely. And so like one of the things is that I was listening to a podcast, I think it was like this week or last week or something, and they were talking about fish and seafood and how much mercury content and heavy metal content larger fish have, like tuna. And the guy who would eat a lot of fish had a pescatarian, because he went full vegetarian, but he was pescatarian before, so he was eating just seafood and vegetarian diet. He wasn't eating meats. And so he got his mercury testing done, and it was extremely high. I think he said it was something like 44 times the level it should be, or the 44 times the max level it should be. So it has a half-life of X amount of days. I think it's like 90 days or something. So it took him like a few years to get back down to where it should be. And so I would eat a can of tuna every single day. 6-ounce can of tuna. So I don't know what my mercury level is at. So I decided, I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to cut that out and I'm going to get a different type of meat in order to get that same meal at the 6-ounce mark. So I decided to go to ground turkey instead because it's good for you.
Yeah.
You know, turkey's pretty good for you. It's one of the best meats that there are besides game meats when it comes to all that, because it's not a highly processed animal when it comes to like the growth, because its market isn't there except for this past Thursday. So it's much easier to get ones that aren't antibiotic, aren't anti, all that good stuff that they pump chickens and beef with, hormone in that. So I said, you know what, I'm going to cut down seafood. But the problem is, if you cut down seafood, there's a lot of benefits in seafood that now you're giving up. So it's this balancing game.
Right.
So I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to cut out fish completely. What I'm going to do is I'm going to limit the amount that I'm eating. So it's not 1 can every day.
Right.
Maybe I'll cut it to 1 can every week.
Right.
Maybe I'll cut it down to 2 cans every month or something. So I'm still getting some fish and some of the good stuff with fish included, but I'm limiting my exposure to heavy metals and ingesting it into me and causing those possible problems down the road. So it's all about balancing and figuring things out and finding out what works best, and then trying to do a lot of different things in one.
Well, that's why I think, you know, when you hear like, oh, climate change is going to melt the ice caps, like that's just that's a small part that from like the 90s that, you know, started off this whole thing about climate. But now it's pretty clear, like we need to worry about the environment, and it's cumulative. It's not just one thing and like, oh, the ice caps are going to melt and flood everything. That's just a small part of what may happen. But what is happening is exactly what you said. High levels of chemicals in fish, in animals, loss of biodiversity around the world. And that's what we need to worry about is our environment. In fact, I don't know why I'm all suddenly conscious of our environment lately. It might be because I'm moving into a new environment and I'm thinking about the environment.
Might be your echo chamber.
Yeah. But I was going to the new place that I'm moving, and I was going under an underpass the other day, and there's just a bunch of plastic bags and garbage. And I just like, this is really sad. Like, this should be clean. Like we should have a clean environment. And there's just, a ton of garbage, and it's not good. So I don't know what the solution is, but we really got to start thinking about it.
It's funny because I was scrolling through Facebook earlier, and a friend of mine posted this, and I'm going to hand my phone to you in a second.
Okay.
And I'll explain it to you, but I want you to look at it first, and so you can see.
So with the vaping problem, though, I do have a solution.
But hold on, I want to see what your opinion is on that. And if you got to zoom in a little bit, just pinch like normal. It's kind of like your phone, but
yeah, no, I see it.
An Apple.
I don't know. They look like 3 different types of greenery.
Yeah, but do you understand the difference between the pictures? And I'm going to explain it in a minute, so anybody who's listening, don't get too confused. Hold on, it's coming.
Yeah, I mean, so for people who are listening, there's some vegetative growth with flowers. Then there's a highly manicured lawn. And then looks like tufts of just natural grass. Yeah.
So it's essentially, it's 2 different pictures. It says, "This is sexy," and underneath it is showing just a lot of weeds and a lot of growth when it comes to plants and vegetation, whatever it is. Then next to it, it says, "This is not," and it's a freshly manicured lawn. And then underneath it says, "Real lawns have native biodiversity." And it's talking about all of the different plants and stuff. And one of the things, that is so true when it comes down to it. And what's crazy, I don't want to report that. I like that picture. But what's crazy about that is there's codes in place in at least in this area and probably several other areas that say you can't have weeds growing like that because it's weeds. It's but that's native biodiversity.
No,
that's
lawn.
what's no, you need to have a freshly manicured lawn. It can't be more than X amount of time. Otherwise, we're going to call it and your property value is going to go down and then we're going to fine you. And it's like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like that, if I, I almost got to the point where I said, I'm taking out my fucking lawn and I'm going to just put in green concrete.
Yeah.
And then say, fuck you.
Yeah, for sure.
But here's the problem with that is now there's no vegetation.
Yeah, exactly.
But all the people who put in the lawns and have these lawns and properly maintain these lawns is a major problem because one, you have to cut the grass. So you're going and every time you cut the grass, there's little animals that are all scattered throughout that you're killing. Every time you cut the grass is a mass genocide for that parcel of land. A mass genocide.
And also pollution from your lawnmower.
Your lawnmower is spitting out gas and oil and all that fun stuff.
If you get the chemical spray on there, you got the now you got.
I was just going there.
You got chemicals, you got pollution, all to have that pretty grass that you don't even want anyone to walk on it. Get off the fucking lawn.
Yeah, and you know what? I don't care about the fucking grass. I just say let it go. Yeah, sure, it looks nice when it's properly maintained, but guess what? I have to invest time. I have to invest my resources. I have to invest, and then I have to water it too. I never it's funny because my neighborhood, they'll water the grass. I'll let it fucking turn brown. I don't care. I don't care.
Yep.
And you know why I don't care? Because I'm not going, grass is not even native to this area. It's not.
Yeah.
And it's a non-native plant that we got from England. And you see other parts of the world, they don't care about their front lawn because it's stupid.
They got bigger problems.
They got so many bigger problems. And
but you know what? My neighbors down the street have the real solution. They got some kind of special grass that is a smaller blade of grass. It feels better on your feet. It's more soft. It's more frilly and vibrant. It doesn't get very long.
And let me guess,
a different color.
AstroTurf?
It's not. No, it's real grass.
Okay.
But it's a softer. It's small. It's a smaller blade of grass. It feels better, and you never have to mow it. So, or you may have to mow it like once a year, but I don't know what the strain of grass is, but it looks different. We have all standard green grass, and then there's this darker color grass it's darker and it feels better. It's softer and it's smaller. It's more mossy.
But here's the best part of that
You
grass.
don't have to mow it.
You're going to have all the people who are on either side of you who are cutting their grass, who's going to infect your own grass.
Yeah.
And so you're going to see the other grass start taking over. And if you have to that type of grass, I'm sure comes with its own pesticide that you have to lay and put down. So then you don't have that grass from each other's sides affecting you.
I don't know what the lawn care takes. I mean, it didn't seem like it. I've lived there since I was a kid. It didn't seem like it take much upkeep. Looks at just a different brand of grass. So like, why doesn't everywhere have this around here? Maybe it's more expensive.
Here's the other thing. At my house, I don't use pesticide on my lawn at all.
Good.
And I have multiple grasses growing on my grass because, frankly, I don't give a fuck about cutting grass. Yeah. And if my neighbors have a problem about me not cutting my grass, I don't care. And then if the town has a problem, I tell them, I don't care. Yeah.
Well, you need to prove like negative damage. Like prove that you're damaging your neighbor or something. Prove it to me why. You don't like the way it looks? I'm sorry. Don't look at my lawn then.
Yeah, right. Oh no, it's affecting property value. So now my value of my house is going down. Yeah. Are you selling your house?
Yeah.
No?
Okay.
Then tell me again why your property value matters if you're not selling your house. Yeah. Are you refinancing your house?
And why does the property value revolve around the type of grass that the neighbor has? Like I get it aesthetic wise, but nothing makes any sense.
It's so fucking stupid. Yeah. And I would much rather, what I'd rather do is actually pull out the fucking grass and make it into a garden. Yeah. The whole fucking yard, I want into a garden because then guess what? I can make my own food. I can make my own, I can have all my stuff. And you know what?
Yeah.
I'm feeding myself. I'm happy. I'm enjoying.
Yeah.
I'm doing good. If animals get it, hey, guess what? That's fine. They get it. But you know what? Then I would do different crops too. I would do crop rotations.
Great.
So you're mixing up the soil. You're mixing up the nutrients. You're not just bleeding the nutrients from one site. The same
And that
thing
right
over
there, sir.
and over and over again.
That right there is how we could start saving the environment. Everyone should plant lawn farm. Lawn farm can help save everything. We'll grow all sorts of plants. There could be little animals that live in there. Because that's going to happen. If you have you're going to get, moles or mice or something's going to live in there.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing. No, we got to have that. We got to have that grass. Because if we don't have that grass, we're going to fine you. We're going to fine you because you're not. You need to have grass. You can't have that food there
because you know what? I just released a study that says that grass causes ball cancer. So that's what's happening.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna write an article later that says cutting your own grass increases ball cancer and lowers testosterone levels.
Yeah.
So men will not want to have sex with their wives.
Yeah. Don't cut your grass. So my solution, I wanted to tell my joke. My solution to vaping. Well, and you know what? On the same point of vaping, I know we keep going over this, but so as a smoker, I was on the cusp of when they started to come out with smoking is bad for you. When I was a kid, they really did market cigarettes to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's the whole thing. There wasn't a regulation the same way where it's like, oh, you need to protect your kids because that's the whole thing. It's like, well, we need to protect the children.
Yeah.
And so we're making up all these like rules like, you can't cigarettes because I get that. Yeah. You cigarettes, alcohol, any even mind altering substance really shouldn't be consumed until at least 25 or at least when the brain is fully formed because it can actually cause problems.
Yeah.
And I started drinking when I was 14 years old. I didn't drink heavy. I never smoked. I smoked weed. I still do. But you know what? I mean, that's the whole thing. It's like, but I've always had the respect and the responsibility when it came to these substances. I knew the effects that it has, and I played within the rules and played within the game, even though it wasn't necessarily legal.
Yeah.
But again,
well, and there's debate. Like I had a parent who smoked, and I got peer pressured into smoking by two of my younger relatives. So it's like, I didn't smoke till relatively later when other people around me were smoking because I played sports. Well, then I finally got peer pressured into it, but was I doomed from the beginning because I had a parent who smoked, right? So you're already prone to smoking, and that's where the gap is. Well, also, when I was growing up, there wasn't the campaign of smoking is bad for you. It was just getting started when I was already a smoker. And I wasn't smoking because of advertisements to kids for smoking is cool. Because it was in all the movies like, oh, you see a cool person smoking. I was a smoker because I had a parent who smoked. And I'm sure the siblings around me picked it up because of the parent who smoked. And I wanted to fit in. I got peer pressured into it. And that's how real things get passed down from one generation to another. Mostly it's from observing people mirroring the people who are around them.
I get that. No, I get that aspect, but I also don't want it to be the crutch of saying
it's not a crutch. Yeah.
No, I don't want it to be the point where you're saying, oh, I'm doing this because of X reason,
right?
And playing almost like the victim.
No, and it's cumulative. There's a whole slew of reasons. Now, there's debate on whether that the addictiveness of smoking is passed down from generation to generation. Like, and was I epigenetically predisposed to smoke because I had a parent who was a smoker? There's debate on that. But also being exposed to that cigarette smoke.
What's the study say on that one?
Right, exactly. And the science is out. So that's where real science is taking place. We're actually studying these sort of things, the effect of the environment. Does the addiction of a parent, is that passed along into genetics? Which they're studying these sort of things. Well, for me, also, once I was older, and you knew the dangers of smoking, even though it wasn't as publicized as it is now, where they're like, oh, it's going to cause lung cancer. This was just starting to come out. So then once we knew for sure that smoking is bad for you, I knew the risk and I still chose to smoke. That was my right as being a free person in the universe.
Yeah, but here's the thing.
That's where I have the issue.
Let me ask you a question. If you weren't addicted to cigarettes, if you weren't addicted to the nicotine in cigarettes, would you have still smoked, or would you have just stopped because you didn't have that craving?
Now, I would have stopped, but I'll tell you why. I would have stopped when they raised the tax on the cigarettes. So first I was smoking because I did enjoy smoking. Once you get into a habit, you program yourself that you like this, right? Well, once the tax, they decided that, wait a minute, all of these millions of people are addicted and they'll do whatever they can to get those cigarettes. So if we just tax the fuck out of it, we can just, fill our coffers with this tax money and take advantage of their addiction. That's what it really is, and we all know that. And it's actually embarrassing in a democratic society that we all, us smokers, all allowed this to happen, and even people who don't smoke allowed this ridiculous taxation to take advantage of people who have an addiction. So that's when...
I mean, there's a lot of taxes out there, though, that are absolutely ridiculous.
For sure.
And need to stop.
Yep, tampon tax. So...
No, No, that's necessary.
Yeah, you got to.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, of course, we got to have that. So, within reason, I understand taxes, but within reason, why is the tax on cigarettes more expensive than the actual product cost? They're just taking advantage of people's addiction for
at that
money.
point, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's when I'm like, I want to quit. I don't care. I can't afford this, and it is bad for me. So that's where the addiction took over. And then when the vaping came out, it's a mystery. We don't know what the effects are, but I still, to myself, said, well, this is way cheaper than smoking, and it's probably better for me because there's no tar and there's no any of this stuff. I'm going to try this but the factor was expense, right?
Yeah.
So I switched over.
Most anything is like that.
Of course.
So.
And also, though, I didn't want to stink anymore. I wanted to be able to taste food and breathe. So I switched over, but I knew full well I don't know the risk of this. I'm going to do it anyway, knowing full well that I don't know the risk. That's where they're
probably shouldn't be holding the can while you're saying that on the video for anybody who's watching this. For anybody who's listening, they'll understand what I'm just saying. You're holding the thing.
We don't know the risk of metal cans. So, but I knew the risk of my vape, that this is an unknown thing. I don't know. So I tried it out. It didn't seem worse than smoking to me. I could breathe. It was cheaper. And after I got into the habit of vaping, like, oh, I can smell things again. I can taste my food. I'm saving money and I can breathe. So it seemed better. And we don't know the long-term effects. But as long as I have an educated knowledge that I don't know the effects of this and I'm willing to take that risk, that's my right. It's freedom. When someone comes along and says, you're not allowed to have the watermelon flavored vape, you're oppressive. You're oppressing me. You're oppressing everyone else. And then when they come along and say, you're not allowed to have the watermelon flavored vape because my children might smoke, then I say to you, why aren't you diligent in keeping your children from not vaping? If you don't want them to vape, then be diligent.
It's just like when people come and say, you can't eat that thing that grows out of the ground because it's going to make you trip and you're going to see some weird ass shit.
Yeah.
Called psilocybin.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. It's a fucking mushroom.
Right.
If I want to eat a goddamn mushroom, let's eat a goddamn mushroom.
Yeah. Well, you might
weed.
do crime on that mushroom, Chris. And that's why you can't have it, because there's a small possibility that you might do crime or you might have a bad experience. Well, we have laws for that.
I might do crime
if you do
my
crime,
sober mind.
Right. Exactly.
I do every single day. I get behind the wheel. I break the speed limit every single time.
And we have laws for that. We already have laws for if you do crime when you're under the influence. We already have a law for that. So it is an invalid point, and it's ridiculous. And I'm with you. But I do have a solution to the vaping with the propylene glycol, because we don't know what it is. If we want to just get pure nicotine, here's what I am inventing. I'm inventing my own thing. You can put your mouth on it and suck it. It's going to be called the Personal Electronic Nicotine Inhalant System.
I think you need to pull your pop filter back a little
probably.
bit, because it's a little poppy.
It is poppy. I hear it. Yep. Is it on the recording or is
I
it
can
just
tell.
in the thing? Oh, no. So anyway, it's gonna be my it's
Yeah,
you're gonna be able to put your
it's gonna
mouth
be your
on
penis.
it. It's my penis, my personal
So
electronic.
here's the other thing. I think what we really,
Nailed
I think this is, this is all leading up to one thing. This entire conversation today about talking about substances that that are trying to get banned, especially when it comes to watermelon flavored vape juice.
Yeah.
And that is the fact that we need to ban one substance and one substance only because it is so bad. I can't believe it.
Is it dihydrogen monoxide?
It is.
Oh,
Yes.
I knew it.
You knew it.
I knew it. It's horrible and it's everywhere.
It is. It
It's
comes
everywhere.
out of our pipes in our water pipes. We need to do
falling
something
out
about
of
it.
the sky.
We need to do something about it.
Well, it's because of the children, Chris.
Yeah.
We've got to protect the
I
children.
mean, it's horrible. Dihydrogen monoxide is a horrible substance. It's horrible.
What is it? It's used as a solvent in cleaners. It falls out of the sky.
Oh my God, it's a diluter.
Yep. It causes slippiness on the highway.
It freezes, and when it falls, it's called snow. So for anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's water, H2O, and it's just the way it's spun.
Yep.
And the funny thing is, there was actually a movement against that dihydrogen monoxide.
Really?
People actually thought that it was really bad because the way people portrayed it, but they didn't use their common sense to realize, wait, that's 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen. Wait a minute, isn't that just water? Yep.
Well, you have to be careful, and that's why reading packages like sodium bicarbonate. Sodium bicarbonate. That looks really bad.
I love sodium bicarbonate.
Yeah, it's great. It's
good for you.
Yep. We use it for a lot of things. So yeah, just because something has a jacked up name doesn't mean that that's what it is. And you always have to watch out for that. But it is hard deciphering labels.
The one thing, though, that it all comes down to when you're reading labels is the least amount of stuff that's in that product is going to be better. And yes, the things that you really can't say, probably not the best for you. Usually fillers, usually binders, things like that, and preservatives that probably aren't the best. Maybe that's why Jennifer Aniston looks as good as she does for her age, is maybe she's eating a lot of preservatives in the food that she's eating. So maybe we need to eat the preservatives so we look a lot better because you know what? A 50-year-old woman from or whatever age she's at, around that age, 20 years ago looked not as good as some of these women do today.
Yeah. Holy
Holy shit. Paul Rudd, I think, is 52. And dude, guy looks good for being 50.
For sure.
So maybe these preservatives. You know
Maybe.
what? No, I take back what I just said. Eat all the shit. Eat all the preservatives. Eat as much as you can of it. Yeah. You'll be okay.
Well, what it really is, Chris, and this is what everyone should do, is just have a lot of money. That's the solution to how you stay young.
True.
Have a lot of money. That's what it is. I don't know why everyone's not doing this. Have a lot of money.
All right, so we're going to change this up. Now, you, my friend, are working on stand-up, and you have a few minutes. I don't know if you have any more.
You know what? I watched a special. Eliza Schlesinger.
Never heard of her. Maybe I have. I don't really know, actually.
Her name's Eliza. I'm always going to mispronounce her name, Schlesinger. She's got good stand. Her specials are good. I like her. But I watched a documentary about how she made her Netflix special.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if traveling on an airplane is for me.
Why?
I just don't know if it's for me.
Okay, what's that got to do with...
Maybe I should take a bus.
What's
or
that
a
got to
train.
do with being stand-up anyways?
Well, so being a stand-up, it seems like you fly a lot of places a lot of the time.
Well, if you need to get somewhere quick and back somewhere quick, you got to do flights.
Yeah.
There's no problem with flights. They're fun. They're enjoyable.
Yeah.
I enjoy them. I love them. I like flights because it takes me to a whole different area in a very short amount of time.
Yeah.
Driving, on the other hand, can be a real pain in the ass. But if you're doing a tour and you set it up right, you get the nice little bus and then you rent it. But here's the thing. You're totally not even there. If you haven't even done an open mic yet.
No, I haven't.
So let's not worry about that bullshit
About
yet.
being a star, because I'm gonna have to have my
let's
own G5.
let's peel it back and let's talk about that. You want to do stand up,
Yes.
And you do have some time and jokes written out. Have you put any more into it yet?
I had a good joke the other day that a friend of mine said because
So was it your joke or was it your friend's
I'm stealing it. Well, it's a joke about myself. So what had
Okay.
happened was, you know that now that I've quit vaping, I was a chain smoker. You met me when I was
100%, yeah.
You met me when I was a chain vapor, and well, it wasn't that bad, but I would have to go out during our breaks to vape
Yeah.
periodically.
And this was when we were playing Cards Against Humanity.
Yeah. That addiction. Yeah.
That addiction monkey.
I would last about an hour or two. That's exactly what happened. Last about an hour or two, and then I'd have to go, suck on my penis. So, what really helped me was just meditation, and we'll talk about that another time. But that's how I was able to quit vaping.
Yeah, but
100%.
That's not what I'm asking about. I'm asking
So here's
about
what happened.
The comedy. 'Cause
After our Cards Against Humanity night, I had the privilege.
which one?
The last one that we did.
Like a week and a half ago?
Yep.
Okay. Oh, speaking of Friday night, we got another one coming up.
All right. Cool.
So don't forget about that. I think it's
won't.
December 6th.
Oh, you're right. It's this Friday.
Because today is the 1st. Even though when you guys are listening and watching this, it's not going to be December 1st or 6th. Because we have a few podcasts that we still have to upload prior to this.
Yes.
So we're running a little behind, but we want extra just because of the whole thing called snow and weather and crappy weather. So if one of us gets sick or we can't make it, we only do this once a week.
Yep. So all work and no play make Aaron a dull boy. And I had the privilege of playing Cards Against Humanity, which was great. Then another friend of mine had texted me that he wanted to play the game of Risk.
Still avoiding the topic of
Well,
comedy.
it's the game of global domination.
Yeah, but still not talking.
So while I was
getting to my
there,
question.
a friend of mine who has known me for a long time has seen me going through the stage of quitting drinking and then now quitting smoking. And he's like, well, you're just a big old quitter then, aren't you? And yes.
No, I am not a quitter.
No.
I am a
Yeah.
go-getter.
Yeah. So definitely a huge quitter. And I know there's a bit there. And I'm going to work about quitting things. This is being a gigantic quitter.
Okay, I got you.
So that's the newest one.
I want to hear that. But yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. One of the big things, though, that it is funny because when I scroll through YouTube and want to watch YouTube videos, as we were talking about earlier before we even started recording today, when I scroll through, I don't look at the trending page. I look at the suggested page because that's videos that I like. That's videos that I haven't seen, that I want to see, that I don't know about yet because there's so much content out on YouTube. So I'm scrolling through and I've seen this a couple of times recently, but it doesn't apply to me. And it's about people who don't start things. So you're talking about it, you're thinking about it, but you don't actually do it.
Yeah.
And time goes on, continues to go on as it always does, but you still don't start the project that you want to start, or you don't do anything that you want to do.
That's right.
So I've noticed that in this reoccurring thing, and I'm like, well, I've started everything I want to. And even doing this podcast took a long time to get started. And I was getting very frustrated at that fact of not publishing what we were putting out there. But we were running into problems and stuff. So it was like, fuck it. We're just starting now. At this moment, it's going live. It doesn't matter. So we made that decision. But that's the whole thing. There's times from when we've talked about that you've held back a lot of things or have ideas for stuff that has never come into fruition. Right. And yes, I understand time, time is a valuable luxury, but time management is an amazing tool.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, let's look at Rogan. Okay. He's got an amazing podcast that he does, 5, 6, 7 podcasts, maybe a week. And on top of that, then he works out. And on top of that, he does stand-up comedy and he works new material. And then he has his family and whatever else that he does.
And the UFC.
Yeah. And all the other stuff that he does.
Crazy.
He does a lot of different stuff. So, yeah, we have a podcast, which we record once a week. And I know you've been talking about doing comedy now for quite a while.
Yeah, for sure.
And the thing is, though, have you done anything to get at least 5 minutes to do an open mic?
So and you're right. Well, there's been a lot going on and I'm moving to a new place. So hopefully this new place is going to be a new environment for me where I can focus more on the things that
Okay, valid point.
Yeah. But also, yes, what I was doing was writing. And I have, who knows? I have a couple bits written down, which is a big step because again, you're right. I would just talk about, oh, this is my thing. But in a more general sense, not only do I want to try the stand-up, which I am going to do, and I probably have enough to start doing an open mic, which I'm going to do, which was my plan after I probably we'll shoot realistically and say the new year. In fact, you know what? My New Year's resolution will be to go do open mics. So
no, we don't. I'm not a fan of doing those types of things.
Because they only last a week?
Well, New Year's resolutions aren't. It's like, why would you wait to say to the new year when you can start getting started now?
Well, yeah.
And again, that all that is just enforcing or reinforcing the let's wait to a certain time. And then you get there and you might write a little bit and then you're like, well, this is coming up and this is coming up. No, it's got to take a priority and you got to make it a priority and say, all right, well, I'm going to dedicate, maybe 30 minutes a day towards writing and rewriting. And, I'm going to find a couple of different times that I can go do open mics around the area because we do have quite a few bars and clubs and different things
resources for
that we can, at least here in Buffalo, which is fantastic. So not only that, I also want to go to these and help support you.
Yeah, they're fun.
And enjoy and see that. And, then there's other things that we've talked about.
Yeah.
But in that aspect, it's just timing and getting things time managed. And that's one of the big things I'm working on very much so right now is working the time management aspect of things and becoming more efficient with my time. So yes, I still get my 7-8 hours of sleep. I still get my cardio. I still work out. I still eat properly at the right times. I still do my night cardio. I still drive. I still do my videos. I still do my uploads. I still do, all of these different things while enjoying time with my family and all that fun shit. But I just need to tweak it and get it better.
Right.
And if I can take on a different project or add a whatever, then maybe at that point. But that's a big thing.
That's where I really need to improve because I'll do like pretty okay for like a week or two where I'll, eat healthy and I go to work. But then when I come home, I'm not doing things that benefit me. Like I could have written a lot more. Inspiration for jokes for writing was hard. To get all the time, so you do have to go out and have experiences in life. Yeah, like the quitting bit is pretty good, and I know there's probably a lot I could write there. But before that, the week before that, when I was at the political thing, that's a good joke.
Yeah, but see, here's the thing, though. If you listen to a lot of comics, they've always had a lot of challenges that they've had to overcome in their life, and you've had a lot of challenges that you've had to overcome in life.
So many challenges.
So it's not that hard to find the inspiration.
I got a lot of
it's just literally sitting down and saying, okay, well, let's start with 30 minutes a day.
Right.
We're going to do it every single day. It doesn't
that's
matter
what I'm not doing.
That's the whole thing. You got to get the discipline behind it and then say, okay, well, I've worked this. Right. Now let me hook up my mic and a video or a camera and let's record it myself and see how the timing is. And I'm not a comedian, so don't quote me on that. But then it's like, well, you have this material and you want to work it. Now go to the comedy scene and the open mic nights and do your scene and then work it and tweak it and change it and evaluate it. And if something's not working, try to rework it, or let it go for a little bit and work on something else and come back to that. Yeah. And that's the whole thing. It's the process behind it. Well, get it going. Yeah. Start doing something.
And moreover,
don't wait.
Yeah. Moreover, like the comedy is one thing, but I'm on the fence on whether I want to make an actual comedy movie or do stand up, because stand up is its own thing and a movie is its own thing. And but I just have to start doing these things. Like that's the thing. And the fact that I have been writing down the jokes and trying to write out, you really only get, when you start, you only get 3 minutes, and that's not a long time. You tell a couple jokes and then
but that's the whole thing. Yeah. That's what you're really working out a bit.
Yeah.
1 bit.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 bits, depending on what it is. Yeah. You start off with a little zinger joke to get them, and then you start working and tweaking things.
But moreover, on the vast things that I want to do, I just have to start doing them, which starting writing the stand-up is a step in the right direction, but I have to work on time management much, much more. You're way better at that than I am.
Not at all. I mean, I just make things priority and say, okay, well, this is happening then, this is happening then. And that's really kind of the only thing. I've never dived in and it's just making it a priority and pushing through with things and having the discipline to say, this needs to get done. It's not going to get done without me. Yeah. I have to do it.
For me, I'm just like, do I feel like writing right now? Or do I feel like, doing part of the, do I want to write a part of what I think would be a funny scene for a movie? Or should I focus on my finances? What, maybe I want to do this. How do I open my own company? Like I have so many things.
You gotta kind of
direction and go.
Denoise everything and figure out something and say, like, because here's the thing: let's say you do stand-up comedy, and you pick that avenue, movies aren't necessarily out.
No,
or creating movies isn't exactly out in any way. It's just a matter of getting one thing done and then opening the avenue of saying, okay, well, maybe you get picked up and you get known and you do a tour
or maybe you have anything would free up time
or whatever it is. And then you're like, all right, well, if I work a couple of nights and then I go out on the weekends and, maybe I'm a opening act for a comedian, maybe I'm this or maybe I'm that or whatever it might be. And then all of a sudden, things start taking off in that direction. Now it's like, well, I'm making enough money where, hey, I don't have to do this job anymore. And now X amount of time has just opened up for me.
Yep. Definitely. All about making moves. Mm-hmm. And what you were saying earlier about, so my quote for the end of the podcast was going to be, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. And that's John Lennon. But I'm not going to use that one. I'm using that right now because it's exactly what was happening. Like, so busy making all these plans and life is going on right by.
Yep. And you're not doing it. Nope. And it doesn't, the biggest thing is you shouldn't worry about what the end result is because you don't know what that end result is. You don't know what the evolution from beginning to that point will be. You just have to get started, get going, and tweak it. It doesn't have to be perfect right off the bat. In fact, it can't be perfect right off the bat because you don't know if it'll be good or not. Right. You have to learn. And that's the same thing with when I started YouTube. I'm like, I just got to start doing it and go with it. And that's what I did. And, it's becoming successful. And, same thing. You came up with this idea, asked me about it, and I said, yeah, sure. Some time went by where it was just this personal interaction between us. Yes, working on certain debugging issues because we don't have the knowledge there, but we came up with it.
Sure did.
And then I'm like, we got to fucking pull the plug. We got to start doing this. We got to hit the go button. And so we did. And that's the whole thing behind it. And then, there's still certain things to this day that's not there, like the whole YouTube issue, which hopefully very soon that will change. We have all the videos lined up. Yeah. We just don't. It's the unfortunate problem is the internet connection is so bad for long uploads. Mm-hmm. And unless I can find something where I can compress the video to a YouTube format outside of editing and encoding it, that's a much larger file. If I can do that where it can compress it and become smaller but still keep the quality, then hey, we got something there. But once we get the better internet connection speeds, then we can start dumping all those up and get up to where we are.
Yeah. And then it's nothing but up from there.
Yeah, exactly. So what's the quote then?
Oh, you want a quote? Okay.
Yeah.
I think I like this one. Spread love everywhere you go. Let no one ever come to you without leaving happier. Spread love everywhere you go. Let no one ever come to you without leaving happier. That's Mother Teresa, allegedly. Everything on the internet's true, right?
I thought so.
Okay.
According to Wikipedia.
All right, I was Aaron.
You were. I'm Chris. Have a good night.